I guess we're going deep on a console that was like the definition of a generation for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Getting ready for a retro gaming throwdown or just a trip back to the good old days.
Maybe both.
Well, either way, buckle up for some serious SNES facts. I can still remember those Sega versus Nintendo arguments like raging back in the day.
Right.
It's kind of mind-blowing how the SNES, or Super Famicom as they called it back in Japan, ended up dominating. We're talking 49 million units sold globally.
Global phenomenon.
That's insane. And over 22 million just in North America.
That's not just a popular console. That's a cultural, earthquake.
Seriously.
The SNES was a big chunk of so many childhoods.
Absolutely.
And a big part of that was, the games. I mean, it wasn't just the hardware.
Right.
We're talking a library of, get this, over 1,757 games globally.
Wow. That's a crazy amount of games.
Yeah.
I bet there are still some hidden gems out there.
Oh, for sure.
Ones that, most people have never even heard of.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you're right. RPGs, platformers, fighters.
Yeah.
There was something for everyone on the SNES.
It opened the door to so many different gaming, experiences. It was like a portal to whole new worlds and genres.
But what about those early 3D effects?
Yeah.
I remember being totally blown away by Star Fox.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't they use a special chip to make that
I'm
happen?
talking about the Super FX chip. Think of it like an early graphics card, just for the SNES.
Okay.
It basically gave those games, a massive graphics boost.
So that's how Star Fox got those crazy 3D graphics. It must have been like a peek into the future of gaming. Let's talk about something else that was pretty wild. Regional lockout. I can't believe cartridges from one region wouldn't work in another's console. What was the deal with that?
Part of it was business, for sure. It was a way to, maintain different prices in different regions, control how games move between markets.
Okay.
But there were also technical reasons. The consoles in different regions, they weren't always the same. So there was a risk, of incompatibility issues.
Makes you think what gaming would look like today if regional lockout hadn't been a thing.
It really had a huge impact on how games were developed, marketed, experienced all around the world. You could say it was like an early version of some of the challenges we see with digital distribution today, like geo-blocking, region-specific content.
That's a great point. Regional lockout, it really was like the early version of geo-blocking.
Right.
Never thought about it like that. But hey, speaking of different regions, did you know the North American launch lineup had a couple extra games?
I did.
We got Gradius 3 and SimCity on top of the standard launches.
It shows that even from the start, the SNES experience, it could be different depending on where you were.
That's pretty cool.
But some things were universal.
Like
the instant classic status of games like F-Zero, Pilot Wings, and, of course, Super Mario World.
oh man, Super Mario World. Over 20 million copies sold. That's more than some entire consoles. Can you imagine getting a brand new SNES with that game bundled in?
Oh, wow.
Talk about an epic first gaming session.
Yeah.
What do you think it was about those early games that made them so iconic?
They set the bar really high. They weren't just impressive technically, they were fun, well-designed. They introduced characters and gameplay that's still influential today.
It's crazy how those early SNES games basically invented whole genres. We're talking games like The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Super Metroid, and Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah. Each one pushed the boundaries in its own way. Link to the Past, it redefined what an adventure game could be.
Right.
Super Metroid, it perfected that exploration, that atmosphere of, the Metroidvania genre. And Donkey Kong Country,
Donkey Kong Country was incredible. Those pre-rendered 3D graphics were like nothing we'd ever seen before.
Yeah.
It felt like a cartoon come to life. How did they even do that on the SNES?
They used pre-rendered graphics. Basically, they created the visuals in 3D on much more powerful computers, then compressed them down to work on the SNES.
Whoa.
It was risky, but it gave the game this crazy level of visual, fidelity.
It definitely paid off. Donkey Kong Country was a massive hit. Those graphics were a big part of it. And it wasn't just the looks.
Right.
The game had amazing level design, tough boss fights, and that soundtrack.
Oh, yeah. Donkey Kong Country was the whole package. It was like this perfect storm of technical innovation, smart design, and pure fun. No wonder it became one of the best-selling games on the SNES.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the tech side and some of the iconic games.
Yeah.
But there's another side to the SNES I'm really into. Those amazing RPGs.
Oh, yeah.
The SNES was like an RPG powerhouse back then, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Games like Chrono Trigger and Earthbound, those weren't just games, they were masterpieces.
Those games were epic, complex characters, intricate stories. They just pulled you in for hours. What was it about the SNES that made it such a great platform for RPGs?
Well, for one thing, the SNES could handle them. The massive worlds, the complex gameplay, the RPGs needed that power. But it was more than just the hardware. The early 90s, they were a golden age for JRPGs especially, and the SNES was right in the middle of it.
So it was kind of this perfect storm.
Yeah.
The right hardware at the right time with all these talented developers pushing the boundaries of the RPG genre.
Exactly. And the SNES gave them the platform to reach, a worldwide audience.
And we can't forget the music in those games.
Oh, the music.
The soundtracks for Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI were incredible.
Absolutely
They
incredible.
totally captured the mood, the atmosphere.
It wasn't just background music, it was part of the storytelling.
I still get chills listening to them.
Me too.
Okay, we've covered so much already, but we haven't even touched on third-party support.
Yeah. The SNES had amazing third-party support. We're talking about companies like Capcom and Square.
It's mind-blowing to think about the sheer number of games that came out for the SNES.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just quantity, it was quality. Some of the best games of all time on that console. And it's all thanks to that incredible mix of developers.
It's a testament to, collaboration, a shared vision.
Yeah.
The SNES wasn't just a console, it was a spark for creativity and innovation in the whole industry.
And that's definitely something to celebrate.
It really hits you how diverse the SNES library was.
Totally.
There's this whole other level of lesser known games just waiting to be rediscovered.
I mean, 1,757 games globally. That's insane.
It is.
There's got to be some hidden gems in there.
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of the games that maybe flew under the radar back then, ones you think deserve a second look?
Okay, get this. ActRaiser.
ActRaiser.
You're an angel, right?
An angel.
Guiding humanity, battling demons.
Hold on, seriously.
It's this crazy mix of city building and side-scrolling action.
That's such a unique concept.
And speaking of games that took risks, have you ever played Earthbound?
I've heard of it, but never actually played it.
It's a classic for a reason.
What makes it so special?
Earthbound was unlike anything else at the time. Quirky, funny, and surprisingly emotional. This unique visual style, a bizarre but catchy soundtrack, and a story that dealt with some pretty mature themes.
Sounds like it was ahead of its time.
It was. And it proved that even in a market, dominated by action games and platformers, there was room for something different, something that challenged conventions.
We've talked hidden gems, but what about games that really pushed the SNES hardware to its limit? I mean, besides Star Fox and Donkey Kong Country, were there other games that were groundbreaking visually?
Oh, for sure. I'd put Yoshi's Island up there.
Yoshi's Island, yeah.
That art style, it made the game look like a moving storybook. Incredible.
Yoshi's Island was beautiful. Those colorful backgrounds, the
Yeah.
character animation.
They used a special technique for those graphics.
What was it?
Super FX2, an enhanced version of the original Super FX chip. It let developers create some truly mind-blowing effects.
But, all this talk about graphics makes me think about those awesome Mode 7 effects.
Oh, right.
Remember those?
Of course.
Mode 7, that was...
It let devs, manipulate background layers to create those faux 3D effects.
What is it about the SNES that still resonates with gamers?
I think a big part of it is nostalgia.
Yeah.
For a lot of us, the SNES, it represents this golden age of gaming. It takes us back to a simpler time when games were all about, pure fun and creativity.
But I think it's more than just nostalgia, right?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those SNES games are they're just great games.
They are. The gameplay holds up.
It does.
Oh, they're so innovative, so well designed. They still feel fresh today.
And you see that influence in so many games today. Developers, they're still drawing inspiration from those classic SNES titles.
For sure.
Whether it's the gameplay, the art style, or even the music.
The SNES had an impact, no doubt.
I remember seeing kids rocking Super Mario Bros.
Yeah.
Gear all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And those arguments about who was the best Street Fighter 2 character.
Yeah.
Man, those could go on forever.
Those weren't just arguments. They were bonding rituals.
Right.
The SNES, it created a sense of community, a common ground for people to connect over, stuff they loved.
And it wasn't just us kids either.
Right.
I remember seeing adults get totally hooked on those games too. What was it about the SNES that grabbed so many different people?
I think the SNES had this this amazing cross-generational appeal. It wasn't just for kids, it brought families together. It sparked conversations, friendly rivalries, sometimes a little healthy competition between siblings.
Yeah.
The SNES was something everyone could enjoy, no matter how old they were.
So, as we wrap up this epic SNES deep dive, I want to leave you with this. What's your favorite SNES memory? Was it a specific game? A moment of triumph? Or just the joy of, spending hours lost in those pixelated worlds? Think about what made the SNES special for you. And remember, its legacy lives on. So keep exploring, keep playing, and keep that love for gaming alive.